Only a few people can remember vintage Hollywood without thinking of the actress Grace Kelly. She has always been a source of intrigue, even decades after her passing. She's remembered as the cold blonde socialite with a chilly demeanor who was thought to be concealing a flaming, passionate woman behind. A lady with such beauty, ability, and breeding would appear to have an easy time rising to the top. But even as a royal princess, Grace would discover that grace and social status don't always guarantee a carefree existence. From being treated as an outcast by her family to being forced to take a fertility test, here is the shocking life of the Hollywood icon, Grace Kelly. Grace Patricia Kelly was the third child born in Philadelphia to a prosperous Irish Catholic family. To her father's dismay, she was more prone to shyness, introversion, and ill health than the rest of her family. She had previously been diagnosed with asthma and sinus issues. She was the least favored of her father's 4 children due to both her health and disposition, and she distinguished herself from her siblings by maintaining a calm demeanor, although that was not one to impress her father with. Catastrophe struck her young life when Grace revealed her desire to become an actress. Her family was taken aback and, as expected, vehemently disapproved. He thinks an actress was a slim cut above a streetwalker and wouldn't want her daughter to be any of that. For someone of Jack's social status at the time, this was a very normal attitude. However, in Jack's case, it would seem an odd attitude to have, considering that both of Jack's brothers were professional actors. According to a biography, he had 2 brothers, George Kelly, a writer who won the Pulitzer Prize, and Walter Kelly, a prominent vaudeville performer. Unlike his brother, George Kelly, also known as Uncle George, was one of Grace's biggest influences. He served as Grace's mentor and confidant. In him, at least, she had one family member who supported her dream even when the rest of the family didn't, and that couldn't mean less to her. Grace was taught the ins and outs of Hollywood by her uncle, who also helped her get accepted to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Manhattan. But despite all that, she still worked her way up, climbed the ranks herself. Even though Uncle George paved the door for her to enter the academy, Grace made an effort not to rely too much on family or wealth to develop her career. She was adamant about moving to New York, even if her parents opposed it, and she also reportedly paid for her own tuition at the academy by accepting lucrative commercial modeling jobs, shocking her family. Grace also needed to get rid of her Philadelphian accent and manage her sinus issues, which she did by attending diction classes and wearing a clothespin over her nose. And as she got better with her accent, her relatives started making fun of her freshly polished accent. But that didn't deter her. In fact, they motivated her to want more out of life. And before long, she started aspiring to make an attempt at Hollywood after a few Broadway gigs. When visiting auditions, she paid close attention to how she looked, dressed modestly and ladylike, even donning white gloves, which is exceedingly rare in the Hollywood industry. But it worked. Directors loved her presentation. And her big break came when Gary Cooper saw her in her first movie, 14 Hours. After seeing her in action, Cooper had her cast as his wife in his most recent movie back then, High Noon, and this started her on the path to fame. After High Noon, she co-starred with Clark Gable in Mogambo, another significant motion film that capped her rise into Hollywood fame. She subsequently received the Best Actress Academy Award for her work in The Country Girl. But with more fame comes more craziness in her personal life. And it all started with director Alfred Hitchcock, who was infamous for having a predilection for exquisite blondes. But I guess something was wrong with Grace's love life, or wasn't there? She clearly preferred older guys, and she seemed to have a certain kind when it came to her love preferences. Given her troubled connection with her own father, A psychologist may conclude that Grace might have been subconsciously looking for a father like treatment. She was often portrayed as a love interest of guys who were typically much older than she was, which certainly didn't help. This predilection began when she was still attending the academy. She allegedly had a 2-year relationship with Don Richardson, one of her professors, according to Vanity Fair. Richardson was not only Grace's elder by 11 years, but also a Jew, which greatly incensed her extremely anti-Semitic father. The relationship came to an end due to family pressure. It was said that she often had relationships with older, sometimes married, male co-stars. Major performers like Ray Milland, 22 years older, Clark Gable, 28 years older, Bing Crosby, 26 years older, and Frank Sinatra, 14 years older, have all been said to have been romantically involved with her. She formerly dated Prince Ali Khan, and she became very close to marrying Oleg Cassini, a fashion designer. Her love letters to Cassini were discovered and printed by Harper's Bazaar many years after her death. Her preference for older men may have raised eyebrows in her time, but it was not uncommon for women of her era to seek out older, more established men as partners. The allure of a sophisticated worldly man who could provide for and protect his partner was a strong one, and she was no exception. But her craziest and most interesting love life is about to come. And when it came with a royal entourage. Grace met her future husband, Prince Rainier III of Monaco, at the Cannes Festival while promoting To Catch a Thief. De Havilland, who was married to Paris Match magazine editor Pierre Gallant at the time, was the one who officially introduced her to the prince. De Havilland met Grace on the train from Paris to Cannes and inquired about her desire in a private meeting with Prince Rainier. De Havilland recalled in an interview with People many years later, Grace struck me, on first encounter, as a rather reserved, self-possessed, well-brought-up young woman. Grace consented to see the prince after gaining MGM's approval. Following their first encounter, the two began communicating, which eventually led to their engagement. She had fallen in love with the prince while shooting The Swan, in which she portrayed a young princess getting ready to marry a European monarch. But being a princess was always difficult, and it was no exception for Grace. It turned out that being a princess wasn't all about enticing princes, majestic castles, and chariots driven by horses. The real Grace Kelly's journey to becoming a princess was everything from idyllic. She would first need to give up her acting profession and her citizenship in the United States to even get started. She had no option, so she gave it anyway. Next, in order for her to enjoy the pleasure of marrying a prince, Prince Rainier insisted on getting a dowry, since money was an issue for Monaco at the time. There was a $2 million asking price. Despite having the money, Jack Kelly was not happy about having to pay for his gorgeous, well-known daughter's wedding. However, the possibility of having a royal daughter and all the advantages was too appealing to refuse. Jack and Grace decided to split the dowry 50-50. Finally, Grace was required to take a fertility test to demonstrate her ability to produce children. An intrusive and unpleasant medical operation is the epitome of the phrase fairy tale. However, this test was really conducted for a purpose. Monaco was still bound by a 1918 agreement with France that stated that the principality would be transferred to French control if Monaco had no successor. Even though she would have found the fertility test unpleasant, it was crucial for the royal family. Therefore, Grace decided to proceed with the test, presumably realizing how far she had already gone. The marriage could continue if it was determined that her womb was fertile, and you can already guess the result, as the couple later gave birth to Princess Caroline, Prince Albert, and Princess Stephanie. But their marriage wasn't just a smoothly sailing, though. Even if Prince Rainier had a personal incentive to marry a stunning movie star, it didn't imply that he had any regard for the acting industry. Monaco benefited significantly and financially from Grace Kelly's Hollywood stardom, although Rainier disapproved of her prior occupation. He thought that was a lowly occupation, especially for a princess of the realm, and reportedly banned all of his wife's films in Monaco out of fear that they would damage the reputation of the royal family. He seemed to agree with her father that acting was becoming too frequent and mean. Grace was willing to give up her job to become a princess, but she still missed acting and hoped she could go back to it. She made a hesitant attempt to make a return in 1962. She was going to agree to play the lead in the next Marnie movie by Alfred Hitchcock. However, Monica saw a massive protest from the populace following the decision. Additionally, it wasn't only that she would resume acting. No, Hitchcock's film's main character was a crook. The idea of their exquisite, beautiful princess portraying an ordinary thief made the people of Monaco cringe. So Grace left the screen and never came back. She lamented the end of her career for a while, telling the Los Angeles Times in 1964, "I miss acting. In fact, once the acting bug bites, you never really get over it." And a few years later, another tragedy struck. And this time, it would be permanent for Grace. The iconic Grace Kelly is dead. The news of the death of Princess Grace of Monaco sent shockwaves all over the world. As far as everyone knew, she was 52 years old and in excellent condition. And it all happened on a fateful morning while she was taking her 17-year-old daughter Stephanie to school in Paris. Although the specifics of what transpired are unclear, we do know that she seemed to make a fast turn while driving down a steep mountain road, sending the automobile hurtling down a 120-foot hill. Grace had a cerebral hemorrhage, whereas Stephanie just received minor injuries. She would pass away on September 14, 1982, at Monaco Hospital, subsequently known as Princess Grace Hospital Center. Princess Caroline, Grace's oldest child, stepped forward to fill Grace's position in the royal family. In her honor, Prince Rainier founded the Princess Grace Foundation in the United States, an institution devoted to providing financial assistance to emerging artists in theater, dance, and film. Prince Rainier never remarried. He was buried beside Grace after his death in 2005. Grace Kelly's meteoric rise to fame and the tragic end serves as a reminder that even those with seemingly perfect lives can face unimaginable struggles. But Grace's legacy lives on through her timeless performances and the impact she had on the world of film. Her grace, elegance, and undeniable talent continue to inspire generations of actors and artists. If you enjoyed this one, there's a good chance you'll enjoy the next one showing on your screen right now. See there, and remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification icon if you'd love to learn more about the fascinating lives of historical cultural icons.